Well, good morning, good afternoon. We will be starting shortly. Well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to this week's webinar. My name is Tri Nguyen. I am the product manager and sales manager here at Zyxel North America, and I'm excited to be able to tell you about Zyxel's fastest and highest capacity switch that we've ever made. And so we're going to be talking about that, covering about what this model is, what it does, what applications may be helpful for you, and maybe open up opportunities for you. It definitely is something that Zyxel has stepped into a very large space, I guess you can say. But it really complements our products that are already out there today, especially in that 10 gig and beyond type scenario. So a little bit of a housekeeping before we get started. Please feel free to use the Q&A section of the webinar so that you can send me any questions, and I'll try to answer those as best as I can. But first of all, thank you for being here, and hope that this is informative to you. I see a lot of familiar names and some new ones as well. So thank you for joining us here today. Just a quick introduction of who Zyxel Networks is. So let's jump right on in. We are here to innovate simpler ways to connect. And that's really our main goal. And from the world's first integrated voice VAX modems, we are one of the uh, and one of the world's fastest access points out there. We connect and protect people and create networks that are easy to use. So we create network heroes like you. We've been helping our partners work smarter for over 35 years by removing those network frustrations. And we've been in business now 35 years, 100 million devices making connections worldwide, 650 employees working and serving in 150 different global markets, and over 1 million businesses work smarter with Zyxels solutions today. We are a channel-focused company branch on this side of in our space right now, and we serve you through our channel account managers. So you'll see David Chen, Andy Gudral, Jacob Olson there on the list, and we manage the different regions that service you wherever your customers may be or where you have your footprint. We're here to help you with pre-sales, post-sales tech support, any kind of support you need, any questions you have with distribution, with stocking, with pricing, deal registrations, special pricing adjustments, etc. Reach out to us. We can help coordinate all of that with your distributor rep to make things happen and make everything as smooth as possible and supporting you and your business. So we usher in now a new era in switching with our CX 4800-56F. It is a cloud manageable layer 3, 25 gig and 100 gig aggregation fiber switch. And it boasts quite a beefy performance. So it has 48 ports that are 10/25 gigabit. It's pre-configured to be 10 gigabit. And then also you can have 8 additional 100 gigabit QSFP28s as well. And those could also be link aggregated to give you even more capacity on that core network side. It has hot swappable fans and power supplies that I'll showcase to you. It makes it redundant, makes it hot swappable, so easy for you to maintain if any of those things go down. And it helps to minimize downtime without having to take down the entire device in order to swap out those pieces of hardware. And it saves you on cost because then you don't have to replace the entire switch itself, just if a power supply or a fan, which typically in this industry is the piece or the component that might have the first failure, I guess you can say. But with our lifetime warranty and the quality of the product, we don't expect this switch to have any of those kinds of problems for many, many, many years. Cloud management is built into it as well. So if whether you decide to use it in a standalone or on-prem mode, you can still manage it as well in the cloud. So using our award-winning Nebula Cloud Control Center bundled with the device. So it comes with 1 year pro so that you can utilize it fully in the cloud, fully activated, all of the AI functionalities and such that you can find for the switch part of the cloud platform, as well as access to network AV mode on the device as well. So you can now use it for those kinds of very network AV specific applications. And I'll cover a little bit more details on those as well. And it also will have layer 3 aggregation and stacking as well. So advanced layer 3 functionality, enhanced QoS, link aggregation, support for IPv6, also stacking routing or static routing. In additional, we'll be having some feature upgrades that will allow for it to do some dynamic routing, OSPF and such as well. So that's coming in the future for some of the more advanced layer 3 functionalities. It's also physically stackable up to 2 of these devices using the 100 gig port if you're going to do physical stack. But of course, you can always build it into a ring topology, however you may want as well. So you can uplink into that and then also be able to manage it within the Nebula Cloud platform. So this empowers long reach networks with up to 100 gigabits of capability. So organizations, I would say, that do things that are high capacity, maybe video production companies, research companies, or even institutions that rely on a lot of data that is transferred between multiple locations or within the building, or enterprise customers that rely on a lot of cloud-based functionality that maybe the current ISP doesn't provide, but they can have a function that can go directly to like a co-location or a lease line type scenario where they can get a very high capacity. But we do see some service providers that can also now be offering this kind of service as long as they have a physical fiber line their central offices to the customer, they can now provide even up to 100 gig connectivity to that customer. So we introduced this layer 3 aggregation switch, and it gives you that 48 port, like I mentioned, the 8 ports of 100 gig uplink to really accelerate that core functionality for the switches. It's scalable, so it goes from 10 gig to all the way up to 100 gig. It has a switching capacity of over 4 terabits per second and forwarding rates of over 2 billion packets per second. So that's a lot. That's a beefy device there, and it runs with some sophisticated firmware so that you can use it now both on-prem, like I mentioned, or use it in our Nebula cloud platform. So I would say it's quite advanced in that regard for this kind of switch. But of course, you can still use it on-prem and maybe in your applications today. You don't necessarily need or want to use it within a kind of a cloud management, but if you are deploying, multiples of these or to manage not only this device, but all other networking devices, within the Nebula Cloud platform, it helps you now to have an integrated complete piece. So now you can manage the core, you can manage kind of the aggregation switch there, and all of the edge switches that you have deployed in that deployment. So you can imagine maybe in a multi-tenant building, you might have this as your main core, and it's now serving that multi-tenant building of offices and businesses. You can now deliver, 10 gigabit to the business with 100 gig uplinks in your core network. And if your ISP can support and provide you with a 100 gig connection or more, then you can utilize this, as kind of the main backbone, providing that internet connectivity for those customers without having to worry about bottlenecks. I think right now the current option for you is typically probably a 10 gig connection that you might have to share within the entire campus or the entire building, or maybe multiple 10 gig connections. But now we can have a product that you can deliver something on a higher scale. So you can get a larger uplink piece or pipe and then be able to share it at 10 gig, and then even future proof it where you can now offer even 25 gig on that same fiber line. So that becomes 48 ports of 25 gig fiber to your customers, which can be a great upgrade piece or upgrade cycle for your existing customers. Maybe today you are serving them with a 10 gig connection with a 100 gig uplink. And as maybe capacity or maybe as interest comes into play, where you do need to add additional, let's say 100 gig pipes, you could start offering 25 gig connections as well to those, higher end customers, and really give you that synchronous kind of connection. I think that's the biggest thing right now too, is a lot of the current ISPs, you have a lot of download speeds, but a lot of the cloud kind of functionalities, you do also need kind of upload speeds, or for your remote workers that are trying to connect, you need that upload speed to provide them bandwidth on the opposite end. So in order to do that, typically then you have to have some sort of fiber service or synchronous service that gives you that upload and download speeds. And to have this kind of switch available to you, you can now offer that kind of level of service to your customers today. Because of the ability to swap out fans and power supplies, they and make them hot swappable, it increases your reliability and reliability and availability of that device. Something of this kind of magnitude, that kind of a core switch, probably has 48 potentially or more type of other switches that are then multiplied to access points, cameras, local devices, servers, etc. So it becomes very critical for this kind of device to ensure that it's always available and it always is connected and on, because if this goes down, it can affect potentially hundreds or thousands of devices behind it, right? So we want to make sure that it's available. And because of that, we did make it with a dual power supply functions that are hot swappable. It also comes in both AC power and DC flavor as well. So you can even mix and match, I believe. So you can choose to do that. I think there's a mix and match version. Or you can go, hey, all AC and then all DC dual power supplies. And we have configurations of that device, and we sell those as is prepackaged already as a dual DC or a dual AC power device. So you'll see there's a little bit of a price difference as well. and I'll talk about that later on. But in case, this these fans again help to keep the product cool. That's a lot of data traffic and silicon that's being heated up in order to hit that 4 terabits per second and process that. Our switches are also non-blocking as well. So all 48 of those ports and all 100 of those ports are also capable of the full bandwidth available. And swapping it's easy. It's pretty much a slide out types configuration. It helps to minimize maintenance time. It makes it easy for you to pop these out and replace them quickly and easily, as long as you have access to obviously to it physically. So it can really reduce those costs to recover if without having to make the device going down in those scenarios. You can future proof your aggregation and core switch with this kind of switch. It carries out the layer 2 functionalities like you're used to, the VLAN, ACLs, port aggregation, everything you're used to in our classes of layer 2 type switches, but then it also supports layer 3 functionalities, as well as things that we're going to be adding in addition. So like some of the advanced ones that we are adding in the future release is layer 3 dynamic routing protocols. There is already static routing that's part of our kind of layer 2 plus function that the switch comes with. But we're going to be adding routing protocols like RIP and OSPF that's useful for large scale deployment. So that's going to be coming as a future firmware upgrade as with the existing device. So you can use it as a core. You could still use it even as an aggregation type switch. You could put it in a ring type kind of topology. You can load balance, or you can use it as in a failover kind of scenario where you have multiple switches that can help to make sure and ensure that there is always a path to access that core network. So this is just a kind of a quick diagram of how you may interconnect those and make sure you turn on things like broadcast storm or RSTP, things like that to ensure that there's no loops and such in there. But when you do use it within the cloud platform, it also has those abilities with the AI to detect those kinds of things in case somebody accidentally loops or connects something that causes a loop that they weren't aware of, and be able to mitigate that and try to correct that as well. So this applies to the aggregation there, and then you can connect it to access switches that probably are more like PoE powered switches that have 10 gig uplinks. We don't currently yet have any products that have like a 25 gig uplinks, but those are in the plannings right now. So that hasn't come out yet, but we do plan to have 10 gig type switches that have 25 gig uplinks that can then further expand your capacity and push it to the access level side of these deployments. And you can manage it your way. It's Nebula Flex capable. It comes with Pro, so we do encourage and want you to take advantage of it. If you already are using Nebula Pro for your existing networking devices, this can just fit right into that ecosystem and ready to go with 1 year Pro Pack bundled there. And then you can manage it also in a standalone or on-prem mode that you can configure, all these other, advanced features and such that maybe you don't necessarily need or have access to in the Nebula platform at the moment. So there are some maybe advanced features that require either CLI, things like that, or maybe you want to use it more in that Cisco-like configuration style. You can do that within the GUI interface or the CLI interface of these kinds of devices. But most of our customers, everything that you need is available within the Nebula Cloud. If there are some CLI functions that you do want to enable, you can do that through the CLI kind of editor within this device. So we can access that through Nebula. So take advantage of the Nebula, try it out if you haven't, because really it's the benefit of being able to have access to the network information anytime, anywhere. And with the mobile app, it allows for you to use it to help onboard devices. So not only for this kind of switch by scanning the QR code, but all 130 plus devices now that's available in our Nebula Cloud platform. So your switches, your access points, your firewalls, all of the ones that might be part of that network can be managed and viewed, and you have access to it within the Nebula platform. If you want to find out more and you don't know about our Nebula Cloud platform, We do have webinars every month that showcase Nebula specifically. And most of all of our webinars, we do focus on parts of the Nebula platform to ensure that you understand how valuable it is in utilizing this, especially if you're in a break fix mode but need information from your customers or your client devices. This gives you that platform, and especially if you're looking at becoming an MSP or that kind of business model, then this definitely, we've tailor made this for MSPs. So it's a great platform for you to have all the things that you would need to run kind of an MSP business, from alerts, alarms, access to it without having to build tunnels. You don't have to have any additional hardware. You just have to use the devices, Zyxel devices that are there. Um, you can reboot cameras, you can block clients through the app as well. So that's something interesting when you are trying to use it with our firewalls or things like that. You can block different types of devices, traffic, or applications as well through the app even. It's tailor-made for network AV as well. So you have a standard mode that you have access to all those layer 3 functionalities, all the switching type functions that you would normally use, but then you can flip it into a network AV mode. And so in network AV mode, we've simplified the interface, giving you all the pertinent information required or needed for network AV functions. So if you want to deal with Dante, and you want to make sure that all of that is available, we have SOPs, instructions on how to configure the switch to support like Dante, for example. It gives you instant view of the current status. It gives you views and helps you to maintain and configure it very quickly and easily. So you can see this is a much more simplified view of kind of the switching dashboard versus what you would see in the normal standard mode. So this allows for you now to have network at a glance. You can see the port statuses very simply and easily, and then link information from every one of the ports. It's also tailor-made, for this application where the CX4800 can apply with other switches that we have in our portfolio, like our 2220 series that's made for an also network AV. Tying that all together, you can have now 100 gig of link aggregation uplink between multiple CX4800s. You can then have 10 gig, or even 25 gig, to other devices. If you're doing 25 gig, or you go multiple 10 gigs to these access switches, like our XGS 2220s. Those are gigabit facing switches with 10 gig uplinks. And so those can go to all these, video transceivers or repeaters or video control boxes, etc. So just a quick application there. And the other application could be for enterprise, right? You have 100 gig connectivity, whether it is to a server or within your core. And maybe if this could also be on the opposite end, if you're trying to bring down a 100 gig connection, though when you do bring in a 100 gig connection, the firewall is going to be probably your limitation. So you might have the firewall being part of the different segments within this kind of network in order to fulfill the speed and security that you need. So that's probably going to be your bottleneck if you do put the firewall behind the switch, if you're getting like a 100 gig or multi-100 gig connection right from the internet. But you can see that the entire, let's say the entire campus or the entire enterprise can have a much bigger pipe that comes down, which then can be split up into maybe the different buildings or different departments, that then you have multiple firewalls that are managing that in order to meet those kinds of speed capabilities, right? But inside the network, though, if you do have servers, you do have localized data. Maybe this is a CAD or a video production type company where they need a lot of internal bandwidth, where the users and their designers need access to that high capacity so they can do their job very quickly on these very large files. So the upload and the download back and forth through the servers and access becomes very quick and easy, as well as providing a mixed network of your wireless access points, maybe for your phones, IP cameras, desktop devices that are plugged into Ethernet as well, right? That's kind of very typical application scenario there for the business. And then on maybe on the service provider level, you might have the CX4800 be part of your ISP network, and then you're providing it either through to maybe a PON device or to another 10 gig switch. So you're providing 10 gig switch access or 10 gig fiber to the home or 10 gig fiber to the business. So you get your internet connectivity that comes in at maybe 100 gig or multiple 100 gig connections, and then you're servicing that on across the 48 ports, providing that now to each business, where then they would have multiple devices inside. The scenario here kind of shows it more of a kind of a home environment, but I don't foresee necessarily like homes buying a 10 gig or 25 gig connection yet, but who knows, right? That's kind of the, you're always end up pushing as long as there's an ISP that can deliver that kind of connectivity to a customer. It's just a matter of what makes sense from a monetary standpoint. How much does it charge to divide up and load balance a 100 gig connection to give somebody 10 gig connection, right? Most of our ISPs are probably overloading the connectivity because of load balancing, et cetera. And it's probably like at a 10% capacity, in most cases. And that's what I've seen in the past. So you may have 100 gig connections, but maybe there's 100 customers sharing that 100 gig connection. So, or even more. We see that, in our space today. So that might be something that is interesting to you as a service provider, but you can also imagine this being within a building as well. Maybe not for apartments or actual residential buildings, but you can imagine this for a business building where they're, every floor or businesses are occupying different floors that need their own internet connection, and they're limited right now by, somebody else pulling, fiber or things like that maybe not be able to offer 10 gig, 25 gig, or even 100 gig connection to that customer. And then because it's hosted and it's managed within Nebula Cloud, you can really expand to any kind of IT kind of networks that are out there. You have your branch offices, you have your campuses, you have hotels that can utilize all of this, department stores, retail stores, enterprise deployments, sites that have hundreds of small individual businesses or small offices, but can all be managed within a single platform through Nebula, both browser and app-based management. So really a flexible scenario for you to kind of manage that with this kind of device. Gives you that bigger option for aggregating a lot more of these switches together. So just as a comparison, looking at some of these major vendors here as a comparison, just to give you an idea. A lot of our functionalities there, with we have the support for 1 gig, 10 gig, and 25 gig. We have the 8 QSFP28s that can support 25 gig, I think 40 gig and 100 gig as well. And then the switching capacity is, quite on par with all the other models that are there. But we do offer then cloud and standalone mode and network AV built into the devices as well. And uh, a decent operating temperature range, and from a price point that is very cost effective. So here are the models you would see. You'll see like a version that has the dual AC power. You'll see a model that has a dual DC power. So from a price perspective, I will give you the street price. The CX4856F with dual DC is going to run about $6,900 street price, whereas the AC dual is going to be about $6,500. So that might sound like a lot to you if you've never bought a switch of this scale before, but I can tell you that our nearest competitor that has Pro AV capabilities within their switch, you're looking at about a $14,000 switch on the street price. So this is going to be a kind of a cost changer, I guess you can say, from this competitive market. But what we're doing is we're being very, very aggressive to try to capture some of this, give you opportunity. If you have customers that are doing or needing these kinds of switches without having to break the bank, be able to offer this to your customers and maybe win businesses. Because we know if you sell one switch, it probably is not, great quantity or great value in a sense in terms of monetary. It is a large price point, so it is helpful in that regard. But it may open up opportunities for you to win the access layer, right? So now we're talking about potentially 20 switches or so that are in that access layer that are now attaching themselves to a CX4800 or maybe a dual CX4800, and then winning the business of the firewall or even the access point devices that are connected off of those access switches, right? So those access switches have PoE and then are powering up your cameras, your wireless access points, etc. But all of that being concentrated back into this core type switch. So then there's also going to be fan modules, power modules that you can buy as replacement parts. You'll see that on our latest price list, and then they're available also in our distribution channel. We have a lot of customers who do ask, though, well, do you have the transceivers that come with it or can be used by it? Well, we have all of the 10 gig and gigabit already available in the market today. We are working on getting the 25 gig and the 100 gig SFP, the transceivers available in the market to you. We're just working on the inbound of that and making then it skewed up to our distribution channels. So we're trying to be as very cost competitive as possible as well. So you'll see some of these prices on our 10 gig switches and 10 gig transceivers and gigabit transceivers have actually been reduced in price quite a bit in the last several months. So if you haven't been using our optics, please take a look at that and maybe a second look at it, because at least with our transceivers, we know and we've tested and confirmed that it does work, with our products. Even though you could use, you might be using somebody else's, we can't guarantee that it would be, interoperable with ours. So you'll see 25 gig transceivers and 100 gig transceivers in the near future. And then we also have direct attached cables. Right now, there's only a 10 gig direct attached cable. We are looking into a 100 gig type direct attached cable to make it easy for you to uplink between these devices. And so that's also going to be out in the future. So if you haven't joined our partner program and haven't been enjoying those extra discounts that we have through distribution, please sign up. If there's no cost to you, there's only a minimal revenue requirement to maintain those standards or to maintain these levels. So if you are new, you start right on the silver, and if you have basically 1K a month of Zyxels sales, then you will continue to maintain silver. But if you get to 2K per month, then we will give you gold tiers discounts and access to a lot of other things as well. So all of the deals, or all of the members or partners will get deal registration, etc., free tech support. NFR comes into the silver play and gold. Then the gold also gets like lead referrals, a better sales engineer access, advanced replacement functionalities, etc. So we really want to get you to gold, and how we can help you as best as we can to get you there. That's what we're here for. So you can work through our distributors, D&H, Ingram, TD Synnex, Wave, Target Distribution, and Blue Star as well. So please, again, join us and partnering with us at no cost to you in order to get these kind of benefits. If you want to connect with us on LinkedIn, Zyxel-US-channel, or on YouTube, Zyxel America channel. If you want to share this video later on, you'll find that available on our webinar page and on YouTube in just a few hours. Or if you want to connect with me directly, you can always reach out to and look on LinkedIn at Zyxel Try. So Zyxeltri, and it will find me. And please send me a request. I'd love to connect with you. So now it's your turn to have any questions. It's a quick webinar to kind of give you this introduction. Hopefully it's been educational. Maybe you didn't know that the CX4800 was coming out, or that we even had this kind of product in the roadmap, but we want to make sure that you know about it now. And so hopefully you can utilize this in some of your applications, or maybe open up opportunities that maybe you had to kind of skip over in the past, but now have something that you can actually offer to your customers as kind of that core aggregation switch. If you don't have any questions right now, but maybe you think of some later, you can always email me, and I can direct you to, if I can't answer the question, I'll direct it to where it needs to go. Just send me an email try@zyxel.com, TRI@zyxel.com. So I'm going to wait just a couple of minutes. If there are any other questions, then then I will answer them. And if not, you can feel free to drop off, or you can sit around and see if anybody else asks questions. Thank you, Paul. Paul says great job, and Paul is a fan of mine. So thank you, Paul. Good to see you. And thank you for your email earlier as well. So we are working on that. Just wanted to let you know. So this is definitely, the CX4800 is something that is new to us. Not that it's a switch that's new, it's just the capacity. We have our, sorry, XGS 4600 series models that are gigabit ports with 10 gig uplink. So it's similar in that now we're just making that next iteration jump, going from just gigabit ports to now 10 gig slash 25 gig, and then going from just 10 gig uplinks now going up to 100 gig. We know that networks are just getting bigger, faster, especially with the introduction of Wi-Fi 7, pushing multi-gig. In some of our switches, we can push even beyond 2.5 gig kind of connectivity. So in order to benefit from that in the local network, you do have to have a much larger core to process all those things through. Thank you, Wayne. Wayne says great content. Very cool. We'll look for clients where this might fit. That'd be great. So make sure, Wayne, if you do need help, since this is kind of a new market to a lot of our partners, we'd love to help you, sit with your customers to talk through if this is the right fit for them. Paul says, anything you can say about future multi-gig switches on the roadmap? So yes, absolutely. There are multiple, I would say, product lines, and everything is getting pushed towards that multi-gig space. So you'll see maybe more of the gigabit models that we currently have become multi-gig versions of that in the next iteration. We'll have multi-gig, probably the multiple 10 gig switches. So they don't have 25 gig capability, but it would be all 10 gig ports, but then have 25 gig options as well. Well, I guess that is it. No other further questions. Well, look forward to seeing if you do have any opportunities. Again, please feel free to reach out to me or to your sales account manager, and we'd love to work with you on any projects that you have with this new switch. So thank you for joining, and hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.